Can you talk a little bit about the proposal to have local elder justice task forces? What effect do you believe these task forces could have on efforts to combat scams?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. I think they're critical. The Elder Justice Task Force model allows for coordination among local, state, federal law enforcement, prosecutors, also agencies of aging agencies, adult protective services, things like that, and it helps the ability for data to be gathered and assessed to be able to start to see patterns. And that's that pattern that we're missing right now because we're not looking at it through an organized crime lens. I have an example, many examples from the San Diego Elder Justice Task Force that they've done some amazing things very much because they are an Elder Justice Task Force and they are looking at data and being able to understand tying things together and going after big cases. So I think it's really important.
What are the biggest barriers for seniors to come forward to report when a scam's happened? What are their barriers for seeking help? And what are the best ways to help them rebuild their lives after a scam? You mentioned the relationships and the communities you're creating throughout AARP. I think that's really terrific. But I do think we should, for example, the person that you talked about who lost all that tax money, I don't know, I could get that tax money back from her. I think we should have lawyers who can make the case that through artifice and fraud, they do not owe taxes. So at least she'd get that $200,000 back, so she'd have part of her savings.
Yeah.
So maybe even having legal services available for scam victims to get some kind of recuperation.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. And she's certainly not alone. We have many victims that come through this process, and because the money was taken from a tax-deferred retirement plan, they end up owing the taxes because the IRS looks at it as income.
We can probably change that law.
We would like to see that changed. There's a bill out there now, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, well, I'll work on that, and I'll also work on your task force bill.
Thank you very much. In terms of the barriers for victims, one of the barriers is sort of internal. They're so ashamed, so embarrassed, they think it only happens to them. And that comes from a society that has tended to blame victims for the crime that has happened. And we've done that for years. And we've allowed ourselves to believe that it's only old people who aren't tech savvy, who may have cognitive issues. And so it's sort of a them problem. But now we're starting to understand that it's an all of us problem because everybody is being targeted. You don't have to have cognitive decline because of the sophistication of the playbook that the criminals use. So we're seeing some change there. And then the other is there's just too many calls to action. You know, you could report it to the FBI and FTC and the Social Security Administration and everything else. We need a single door that consumers can go to, victims can go to, not only to be able to report, but to report it into a law enforcement system where the data are going to be connected to other reports so that we can begin that, be better at the organized crime connections there. But also importantly, so many people that report, they never hear anything. Especially if they report something online, they're hoping for a call. We need a system where people are treated with dignity and respect, and that there is some outreach that lets them know what's going on, even if nothing's going on, to make them feel less like it was their fault.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Pekarsik, can you talk a little bit about what type of international joint ventures we should be trying to have with our allies? I'm certain it's not just American seniors who are being targeted. I'm sure it's true across the whole globe. But I can imagine if we had international coordination with the UK or some of our EU allies or Asian or Middle Eastern allies, we could crack some of these criminal networks a lot quicker. Do you have any recommendations for us with regard to coordination of investigations?
Thank you very much for the compelling question. I think it tracks with the way that we've been able to share information, increase early warning, and coordinate action in similar realms of criminal activity, including cyber threats. So the way that across our international relationships, we've been able to build multilateral fora and support law enforcement. So I think it starts with information sharing, and we have existing fora from cyber and counterfeit drug and counter smuggling activities that can be activated the same way. So I think it's a compelling priority and one that we have infrastructure to pipe the right information through.
And then last, can you just explain why is human trafficking also often associated with these type of scams?
Yeah, Chairman Scott has mentioned just how profitable and good a business these operations are. Part of their fundamental orientation is that they're leveraging trafficked humans so that they don't even have a payroll. So they tend to be populated again in these territories where there may be lax oversight and are hotspots for human trafficking. And then there's overlap with the actual people leading compounds and moving money with human trafficking, so they're able to take forced labor and employ them in compounds, and also to shield themselves from any scrutiny from local as well as Chinese authorities.
Terrible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm done.
Senator Moody.